Tantalus Entertainment presents the Killer Score Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the newest episode of Killer Score, the podcast where we cover cult classic films with awesome soundtracks that we believe deserve a bit more look, and we talk about the composers, the scores, the soundtrack, and just about everything about the film. I am, of course, your host, Daulton, aka Sick Jacket Man, and you can find me on Twitter, YouTube under those handles. Projects coming up soon.
Hi, I'm Erin Murray, co-host. You can find me online at witchandcrafts.com. We have a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff. That's my online crafting business. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Nair Murray. Different spelling, but we can put that in the description.
Yep.
And last but hopefully not least, Richie Eckert, Richie's Rad Voices, bringing you all the comic dubs from the likes of Tantalus Entertainment and Associates. I've got some projects I've been working on with RB Comics Group and their stuff on the Stupid Reviews and other things. Release dates yet to be determined, but rest assured that I have content planned on my own channel and all sorts of contributions that I've had to their channel and other collaborators. They're all awesome, and I cannot wait for you to see them all once I inevitably put them in the description below.
Yep, and Rich and I got a little something we're working on that'll be coming to you as soon as we can get it to you.
Of course. Now, this one is a special one, and I know I say this every time I have the floor because I'm kind of an egotist.
Well, I mean, hey, if it is like by definition of how this podcast works, they're all special ones, you know.
Oh. Yeah. So, this was one of many movies that I and everyone had put on our list as something that we had to consider imperative material for this podcast when we conceived it.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a list. It's you know, it's tiny.
The first of my we have to do this list when we first came up with the idea of Killer Score was probably Rock and Rule, which, if you remember that episode, was a mixed bag. But
yeah, it was all right. It was all right.
Now, that, I believe, opens up a discussion that I have wanted to have for quite a while, but I wasn't quite sure where to open it on. A question. What makes a cult film? It can be a lot of things, and the term cult film has fallen under many classifications and had a lot of definitions, but the one definition I seem to be able to find some contentment with is it's a film that flew under the radar but has a passionate following for its unique elements, either in spite of or directly because of its flaws. And the reason why I bring this up is because some of my earlier picks for the first and second season of the show were very much mixed bags that nonetheless had their own passionate following.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, Rock and Roll.
Mm-hmm.
That movie has some cool animation, a nice aesthetic,
Good score.
Great soundtrack.
Yeah.
and a really paper-thin plot and semi-annoying characters that pretty much keep it from being the masterpiece I would have wanted it to be.
Yeah, I mean, not every film is perfect or without its flaws, but hey, we all pick something that doesn't quite gel with everyone every once in a while. But, you know, it is what it is, and I'm glad that we're doing something that Richie is so passionate about for April, because this will be actually our only release for the month of April. In the following weeks, the three of us are going to be very busy, so it's not feasible for us to record.
I got a wedding to officiate.
Yeah,
And we'll be in Boston.
yeah, we'll be in Boston for PAX next weekend, so yeah.
And if you're at PAX East in Boston, you can probably find me. I'll be the jackass with the Polaroid.
Yep, you can do a meetup with us, or if we post a thing, which we probably will.
Which brings me, of course, back to the subject of cult films and my passion thereof. I am very much guilty of letting my passion override my analysis of a movie's flaws, but I think that's part of the fun of it. Every single movie on this list, in our lineup of the previous episodes, has had at least one element of troubled production or another at some point. Well, with the exception of maybe Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's kind of a running gag on our show at this point.
Well, even Stand By Me had its problems with production just because of how horrible Will Wheaton's parents are.
Right. But getting on to the topic of cult films, I have taken a look back at all those episodes, rewatched them several times, and come to the conclusion that I have not been as even-handed as I used to be back when I considered myself a full film critic. Which brings me to a director that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of on Killer Score.
Makoto Shinkai?
Yes, but I was also going to say Jim Jarmusch. Jim Jarmusch, the hipster's filmmaker, if there ever was such a designation.
Not Richard Linklater?
The other hipster's filmmaker. Dalton Morrison, taking the gravity out of ramping intros since 2020.
It's my charm.
It is. Now, Jim Jarmusch is probably someone you could consider to be a graduate of that whole Richard Linklater school of postmodern film.
Yeah, people really forget how much Slacker opened the floodgates, you know?
Yeah. And Jim Jarmusch is a filmmaker who has a pretty unique style in and of itself, in that his films are less focused directly on plot than on subtextual resonance, themes, and especially in the case of this movie that we're going to be covering, character.
Ah, okay. So like a fair amount of like Wes Anderson films, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jim Jarmusch is essentially what Wes Anderson would be if he took a much lower budget and...
Was less quirky?
I don't know about less quirky, but he's quirky in a different way.
Gotcha.
As you will see with this movie that we're going to be covering today, which is my long-awaited pick, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai.
Okay. Interesting.
You may... What? Yes.
I have never heard of this movie until Richie mentioned it when we first started the podcast.
Weirdly enough, the way I heard about it is there's a very obscure, like, tabletop based off of this movie.
Huh.
Yeah, I found it in, like, a comic shop, and I was like, what is this? And then I looked it up, and I'm like, this is a movie? Why does a random film called Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai have a tabletop game?
And why haven't I run it yet?
I was like, I'm like, geez, even the Red Dwarf tabletop makes more sense than this thing.
It does.
Yeah.
Because that baffles me, honestly, because this movie is two things. One, a very character-centric movie, and very much a yeah, it's a character piece about its title character, and two, it's a weird movie in a lot of ways. It's essentially a fusion of high-octane 90s action movies, hood movies, and mafia movies.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if this film, made in the 90s by Jim Jarmusch, had a huge influence on, for instance, John Wick.
It sounds like a Hood Kurosawa movie with the title, like Way of the Samurai. Like, when I think samurai, I think Kurosawa.
Fair enough.
And you wouldn't be entirely wrong, because this film, starring Forrest Whitaker in the title role, is about a, I suppose you could say hood rat, but he doesn't quite fit the stereotype, who considers himself the retainer to an Italian mobster who saved his life when he was young. Due to his upbringing, or some circumstances that we, the audience, are not privy to, he lives his life by the code of Hagakure, the official text of the samurai, and literally every aspect of his employment of being Louis' hitman is carried out in the manner of a samurai, from the way he presents himself as his retainer, to the way he only communicates with Louis via courier pigeons, and through some minor stuff that you will see and I will happily comment on post-screening. But that is something of a signature of Jim Jarmusch, in that he is known for very idiosyncratic sensibilities and throwing a bunch of genre conventions into a stew and seeing how it turns out.
Alright.
Okay.
Like when he made Dead Man a psychological, psychedelic, neo-noir western with music by Neil Young.
Okay, then.
So that's a thing.
That's a lot going on.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we'll cover that one day, because that movie is a trip. But tying into the whole cult film mindset that I mentioned, Ghost Dog does very much fall within the definition I presented of a movie that is as intricately constructed and thematically rich as it is quirky to its own detriment at times. I am so tempted to clue you into some of the aspects that are gonna come kind of out of left field, but I feel like they need to be... I think they need to speak for themselves. And also, I kind of like seeing Dalton's Jim Varney-esque expressions and reactions to it.
Fair enough.
It's just like, this dude is like living rubber.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you gotta when you learn to play to the back seats with comedy, you gotta learn to rubberize yourself a little bit.
That Explorer screening.
Oh my god.
Just call me Plastic Man.
But yeah, in case my description wasn't any clue, it's a weird movie.
Okay.
But the Criterion Channel, to which I have subscribed to for the sake of this podcast, actually has a nice little sum up. Who would like to read it?
Sure. I'll take it.
Alright.
We haven't had an Erin reading.
That's true, we haven't had an Erin in a while.
Yeah. Should have worn my glasses for this. Okay. Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. Jim Jarmusch combined his love for the ice-cool crime dramas of Jean-Pierre Melville and Seishin Suzuki. Oh, with the philosophical dimensions of samurai mythology for an eccentrically postmodern take on the hitman thriller. In one of his defining roles, Forrest Whitaker brings a commanding serenity to his portrayal of a Zen contract killer working for a bumbling mob outfit. a modern man who adheres steadfastly to the ideas of the Japanese warrior code, even as chaos and violence spiral around him. Featuring moody cinematography by the great Robbie Mueller, a sublime score by the Wu-Tang Clan's RZA, and a host of colorful character actors, including memorably stone-faced Henry Silva.
I love Henry Silva.
Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai plays like a pop culture sampling cinematic mixtape built around a one-of-a-kind tragic hero.
Alright.
Yep. And you did hear that right, ladies and gentlemen. That is the RZA on the soundtrack. And
I find it so funny to see Seijun Suzuki listed here because, like, he's one of those weird indie Japanese directors I'm a huge fan of that, like, I've considered for the podcast before.
which is awesome because Jim Jarmusch very much takes pages from Suzuki's book in multiple ways, and I'm glad that this movie will be a nice little segue into the inevitable Seijun Suzuki movies that we'll be covering.
Yeah, because Erin and I had the pleasure of watching one of Suzuki's most famous and infamous films, which I'm sure you remember us watching. Yeah. And he's got quite the list. But the film we watched was actually a huge inspiration for, like, No More Heroes and Afro Samurai, because it's basically one of those stories of, like, hey, you got to get to be the number one in, like, the killing world, you know? So.
Well, what was that?
What was the name?
One quick second, and I will have this up. But Seijun Suzuki's really interesting. Like, he literally got fired from his film company because it was like, hey, Branded to Kill, that's what it is.
Branded to Kill, that's
but
what it was.
he literally got fired after making Branded to Kill because they were like, we told you to make a Yakuza movie. And he's like, I did make a Yakuza movie.
And it's the most, almost, basically hilariously bizarre Yakuza movie.
Yeah, it goes from being like a straightforward, like, crime, like, movie with some weird elements to just turning into, like, a straight up, like, comedy for a while before getting really weird and cerebral at the end.
Yeah.
That influence makes a lot of sense for Jim Jarmusch because he tends to tackle a lot of tones at really off-kilter times. But before we begin, something I want to say too is that one thing that I've seen is that in spite of having really highbrow concepts in his movies and being a really meticulous filmmaker, Jarmusch is supposed to be a really approachable, affable guy.
Huh.
Assuming all those cameos in The Simpsons were no lie.
Yeah, I hear he's one of those guys who, like, kind of just lets the film, like, sit for a bit too, like, you know.
Hence this movie clocking in at basically 2 hours exactly. The man knows how to pause on dramatic moments or let the mood speak for itself.
Yeah, I've heard that about his work.
And it's something that I think it really works well for this movie, in spite of being one of the quirkier of his films, and that is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds quirky, so.
You probably won't be seeing Italian mobsters in movies much like these guys, as you'll soon see.
Richie, I don't like the look on your face.
I don't know why I'm just picturing the scene in Goodfellas where Scorsese's mom is holding up the painting. Do you remember that scene?
Yes.
With the dogs?
Oh, you wish it would be that grounded.
Oh boy.
But my excitement cannot be overstated, because I feel like this film and our coverage thereof kind of gets to the heart of what we here at Killer Score are all about. Embracing the awesome, the weird, the dramatic, and the all-around obscure.
All right, let's get it rolling.
Yep.
And we're back. on the set of Killer Score after screening Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai by Jim Jarmusch with music by the RZA. As with the first time when I watched this in high school and all those other subsequent times, I very deeply enjoyed this cultural hodgepodge of a movie. I love Jim Jarmusch's cinematic precision. I love his sparse but memorable dialogue. And I love the performances and the direction and the music and hip-hop sampling soundtrack all across the board. This was a joy to go back to and analyze with my buddies, and I would like to think by their reactions that you had similar thoughts.
Oh, yeah. I definitely. It was a delight for me. Like I said, I could definitely see the Seijun Suzuki influences from what I've seen of his filmography so far. Oh, yeah, Killer Score is sponsored by motorcycles now, if any of you heard that. Just the concept of them. That was the weirdest thing. It was the creepiest email. It just said, "We would like to sponsor you. We are motorcycles." And I was like, all right.
And the email was just motorcycles@gmail.com, so that was just kind of confusing.
Yeah, I don't know how they got that. They must have been a beta tester or something. And the weirdest part was after I read the email, I got like a nosebleed and blacked out for a bit. But all of a sudden, there's this weird money in my account that I don't know where it came from. But hey, we got sponsorship!
Hey!
Motorcycles! They're like cars, but not.
Sponsors, please have us. Give us money. We will give you a slot here.
We will. I will shill for you. Watch me shill. Dance, monkey, dance!
So anyway, what do you think of the movie?
It was rather enjoyable, thank you.
Erin.
I enjoyed this money. Also, we have a coffee or Ko-fi page, so please give us money. Anyway, I love this movie. I love this movie. What the fuck am I talking?
That's what I was like.
Hey, thanks.
You said I love this money.
Thanks for the peeking. I'm gonna have to edit, you jackass.
You're welcome.
You can keep it in for the viewers as a little treat.
For their ears?
No.
Sure.
Erin, please.
I've seen worse. I've heard worse.
So I love this money. Sorry.
God damn it! God fucking damn it!
It's good movie.
Okay. So it's a good movie. I did enjoy it. I'm probably gonna get crucified for this, but I've never actually listened to Wu-Tang before.
Yeah, you have.
I have? Oh yeah, because we listened to it once when you were in the car.
Yeah, I play it in the car a fair amount. I play 36 Chambers a good amount.
But like not on my own time, I mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, the soundtrack I enjoyed actually. The cinematography was just chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, it was Mueller, I believe they said he did that, right? Robert Mueller, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He did do a great job. What else can I say? Forrest Whitaker's performance is just top tier.
Mm-hmm.
Like he put everything into this role, just relying on subtlety.
Yeah.
Without it being like, what the fuck's going on? Because even certain scenes, you're just like, the subtlety in his acting. He says so much by saying so little.
And I think that really plays into the strengths of Whitaker. Whitaker is a versatile actor.
Yes.
He can, and he's also the type that I personally believe does a good performance no matter what movie he's in. He's the only actor, for instance, that I thought survived the cinematic cancer that was Battlefield Earth. Like, he was the only one who I felt actually had some gravitas to his performance.
To throw into the samurai stuff and the references to Rashomon in this, you almost get the sense that he's channeling Toshiro Mifune in some of like his like more simplistic samurai films. Not like his ensemble stuff, more like his Yojimbo stuff.
Yeah, his solo stuff. And his performance in Red Sun, which may just be a candidate for the show.
Fair.
Maybe. But I can see where that comparison comes in. Forrest Whitaker's got
the cool stoicism that Mifune does.
The stoicism, the gritting of his brow,
the intensity, you know.
And he knows how to dial it up when he has to, just like Mifune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an icon, that Mifune.
Yeah. May he rest eternally in peace.
Yeah. I mean, but Whittaker and everyone in this film was phenomenal. I haven't seen this great of a portrayal of bumbling gangsters since, like, a Scorsese flick or or like The Sopranos, you know?
Yeah. Something I mentioned in the ramping introduction to the screening of this movie was that this movie walks a really weirdly tenuous balance of tone. Because on the one hand, this movie is a super serious character piece about a street samurai hitman who is clearly not exactly right in the head in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but it also understands that concept is kind of goofy, and it plays with it.
Here and there.
Yeah.
There's
people just sort of act incredulously when they find out who Ghost Dog is and what his deal is. They're just like, what?
The amusing thing about that incredulity, however, is that it comes from the goofiest and hammiest bunch of mobsters this side of Casino.
Yeah.
I think the highlight performance among that particular crew is probably Henry Silva as the one gangster who is sort of the token honorable one of the crew.
He's great at comical stoicism.
Comical stoicism and a bit of hamminess.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that under spoilers, of course, but
But yeah, even outside the music, I was reminded a lot of Seijun Suzuki's filmography from what little I've seen of it. Like, a lot of the driving scenes with the light reflections and just, like, lingering on the scenery while driving reminds me a lot of Suzuki's work. Like, he uses a lot of that. And the more, like, cerebral or, like, interesting kill work, like, I was like, geeking out a bit because there is a kill towards the end that I won't spoil, but it is straight up one that is lifted from Branded to Kill.
Yep.
And for those of you who have seen that movie, no, it is not the balloon kill.
And I picked this in particular because of that whole cultural jambalaya thing that Jim Jarmusch tends to love to put into a lot of his movies. For Dead Man, it was American, English, and Native American cultures. And for this, it's, you know, hood, mafia, and samurai tropes.
Yeah.
There are tons of little ways in which this manifests. The obvious ways are clearly the Hagakure quotes that pop up every scene or so to mark a chapter of the film, as it were. But there's tiny little touches in Ghost Dog's movements and the way he fights and the way he conducts himself that allude to samurai culture. For instance, the way he holsters his gun by waving it and then putting it in his coat holster is basically a pistol-friendly version of the shiburi, or the traditional motions for cleaning and swiping your sword.
Yeah, and one thing I was thinking about, now that I said my Mifune comparison, it almost feels like people are acting in different genres in this film, you know?
You've got the mobsters and their Scorsese universe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Ghost Dog, who is
like playing a Kurosawa movie, you know?
You've even got characters like Perline and Raymond, who are acting like they're coming straight out of a slice of life hood movie.
Yeah, like I could almost see like, and I say this in a nice way, despite like his, you know, varied filmography. Like Raymond almost feels like a character you'd see in like, you know, like a Spike Lee movie or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly like a character from a Spike Lee movie. Perline too.
Yeah, they both feel like something out of a Spike Lee, and it really fits for the cultural exchange. And I feel like the big theme of this movie that I gathered is wanting. like everyone wants something in this film, and they are getting different things from what they want.
And that
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. Like, take even a smaller character, for example. Like, Pearline clearly wants a friend to, like, just discuss books with, but due to Ghost Dog's nature, he can only be there every once in a while to do that for her. Or, you know, Raymond just wants to hang out with his friend and have a close friend, but, like, they can't become as close as they would like to be due to the language barrier.
Likewise, Ghost Dog wants to be a lot closer to Louis, the mobster that he owes his debt to, but
due to his code and his conduct, he can't do that.
And also due to and the cynical nature of the mafia world.
Yeah, that too.
They may have codes, but they are entirely separate from those of the samurai.
Yeah. The code of the Bushido, as it were, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And all this is bolstered along by some really fantastically written and directed characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ghost Dog is obviously the best sort of centerpiece character you could have for this, but in the interest of variety, I'm going to challenge everyone to name a favorite character of theirs that isn't Ghost Dog.
Let's see. I think for myself, just because his whole dynamic and everything, it's actually kind of hard to choose. But, you know, I'm just going to say Raymond. I like how he's able to connect with people despite the language barrier, and how he clearly understands people despite language gaps. It's a very interesting character.
For context, Raymond is Ghost Dog's best buddy. He is a Creole, French-speaking Haitian man who sells ice cream in the park.
Yeah. And you get the sense that, like, him and Ghost Dog are close despite the language barrier, but they could become closer without it, but they have communication issues. And it feeds into the theme of this movie. Like, we always see people wanting things that they can't have. No one ever gets what they want in this movie, if you pay attention to that.
That's true.
Like even Louis, you get the sense he just wants respect, and no one ever respects him in the course of this movie.
And we will definitely get into that.
Yeah. And that's what I just want to say. We'll get more into the themes. I'll pass it off to Erin.
Character for me would be Pearline, because I feel like this is the one character I can connect to.
Yeah.
Being like the bookish kid who's looking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being like talking to the people you should not be talking to. Because that was basically me as a kid. That was just like, hey, I like this book. Do you like this book, older man?
And being painfully blunt about things.
And being painfully blunt about things, because, you know, she's a kid.
Yeah.
Kids are like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Pearline is my favorite character. Nope, that's a spoiler. Okay. I will pass it off to Richie, and I guess we'll get into spoiler territory soon.
Yeah.
We'll get there in a little bit.
Yeah.
But my favorite character may actually surprise you guys.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
It's not Henry Silva, because, well, cool as he is, he only has minimal bearing on things.
Yeah.
Louis is probably my favorite non-Ghost Dog character.
He was my runner-up.
Yeah.
Because this guy is primo example of an anti-villain.
Yeah.
You get the sense that if things were different, and if he wasn't put in the situation that he was, he wouldn't mind, you know, connecting a bit more with Ghost Dog, or trying to make it so everything doesn't go horribly pear-shaped like it does, but he just is powerless to do so. You get the sense that he really is just a pawn of the tragedy that is occurring throughout the film's events.
Yeah, I can definitely agree that Louis is definitely the pawn, because he's obviously like a lower ranking mafia, and also he's like the one who basically gets used to get anything.
He's a soldier, basically.
He's a soldier at best.
Yeah, he's definitely someone who they get to do the dirty work, and even he outsources his own dirty work.
To Ghost Dog.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, like, you get the sense that all this goes wrong just because, like, he tried to step above his station.
Bite off more than he could chew.
Yeah, because, you know, the mob is mad when Frankie, I believe the guy's name was, gets killed at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he gets killed, because, like, they didn't order that, which means he was clearly trying something himself. He was probably trying a power grab.
Yeah, he was trying some sort of coup.
Yeah, and what I love about that is, like, due to how this film is, they don't, like, give you a lot of information about that. You kind of just gotta guess why he ordered the kill.
There's just enough to glean from that.
Yeah.
And unlike with other movies that could have cooked up their world building just a bit more, it's to this film's benefit.
Yeah, they want you to read into it yourself.
It is, in every definition, an art house movie.
Mm-hmm.
The type of which Jim Jarmusch is all too familiar with crafting.
Yeah.
I mean, one of his most famous movies, if you can call a Jim Jarmusch movie famous, is probably Coffee and Cigarettes. And it's just an anthology where the only common thread is coffee and cigarettes. And that... and he has such a precision about him when it comes to theme and cinematic pacing, and lesser directors, M. Night Shyamalan maybe, would be on the nose in a way that kind of shoves his thematic awareness in your face.
Yeah.
But Jarmusch is something of a master moderator of tone.
Yeah.
He knows when to dial it up on the action end of things, but he also knows when things need to be somber. And the strengths of this movie are good enough that you seldom question why half of the mafia members are really big fans of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah. You know, it's just the character quirk. I don't think there's much to read into that. Like,
Outside of the cartoons being foreshadowing for events yet to come.
yeah.
Yes. Which we will get to. I'll mark it when we do get to that. But let's get to the music, I'd say.
Yeah. The music I really enjoyed. I also like how it marked transitional scenes and periods. Like, the music's
Yeah,
never...
I love the transitional music and the incidental music that they use throughout the movie.
Yeah, music is only used during migratory periods in this film. It's always played when, like, we're going from one scene to the next. It never is playing in the background.
Or montages.
Yeah, it's never playing during, like, actual, like, dialogue.
You've got the opening intro track, Flying Birds, which is a really good, like...
It's sort of the film's leitmotif.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Works its way into stuff like the training montage music and the driving scenes.
What?
I would say I have nothing to say on that besides what I already said.
Oh, okay.
Whoops.
You're just pointing the mic at me.
Yeah, it was...
Well, you looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, you were
No,
just...
no, I was just
I misread that.
Okay.
I know this is kind of my episode, but I'm trying to give everyone equal...
Understandable. That's what I try to do on my episodes too.
I'm trying to give everyone equal share on this because the
score is very minimalist. Is the best way to put it. Reminds me, funny enough, of a Japanese film I saw recently. It kind of reminds me a lot of the score for Drive My Car.
Ooh, I love Drive My Car. That's such a great movie. If it is it still on HBO?
Yeah.
Okay, that was loud. It's on HBO Max. It's a movie based off of Haruki Murakami's short story.
Of the same name.
Of the same name. And although it's 3 hours long, well, just under 3 hours, like by like 30 seconds, I highly recommend it, and Dalton highly recommends it too.
Yeah, it's much like this. It's a film that's more about the characters and about like their journey as people and like what they're going through in their life, you know. And just like in that film and in this film, the music is used to mark bigger moments. You know, it's not just always lingering around.
And given that this movie is very much a character piece, of which Ghost Dog is the focal point and a major source of spoilers, it's here at the 40-minute, 10-second mark that I am going to bring us into spoiler territory so we can further discuss the themes of Wu-Tang, the implementation of samurai culture, and most importantly, the man himself, Ghost Dog.
And the biggest recurring theme that is spelled out to you from the beginning, which is death.
Death is pretty much in every single Hagakure quote that pops up in those aforementioned transitions between scenes and quote-unquote chapters of Ghost Dog.
And what I like about death is it's used very much in the... it's used less in the literal sense and more in the classical and in the mystical sense where it's a transition.
A transition, a change, an upheaval.
Yeah.
In the tarot card sense, really.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, because people always assume with tarot cards that it was like death means death. No?
No, it just means a major
signifies
change.
Or, like, it just signifies a major change. But you can see it early in the movie where he reads off the, where he's reading from the book about, like, how samurai have to meditate on death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically foreshadowing.
Yeah, and it even says, like, the samurai must live every day as if it is their day of death.
They must treat death as if it is approaching any day.
Yeah, as it's always around the corner, you know?
Which, given Ghost Dog's line of work, is very true, even though he does kick a lot of ass.
Yeah. And, I mean, the only times that he falters is when he intentionally does.
He puts himself in a position akin to suicide by cop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, it shows just how much he respects his code and those around him.
And something I wanted to bring up in this section of our sum up is I brought up John Wick earlier because I feel like Ghost Dog is very much a precursor to what I call the protagonist-driven action movie.
Yeah, I could see
absolutely.
that. I could see that.
Your John Wicks, your Atomic Blondes, your Nobodies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only the only other ones I can really think of are some of like the early Schwarzenegger and Stallone flicks, you know, like Rambo, the original Rambo. That's very much a character action flick, you know.
But they have varyingly different, like glaringly different tones.
I mean, yes, but I would argue that the first Rambo is actually pretty close in tone to this.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the fatalistic protagonist. Friendly reminder that one ending for First Blood had
him blowing up the building.
Blowing up the building and making it so he wouldn't come back.
Yeah. Lord knows I wish we got that ending so we didn't get flooded with the Rambo sequels that completely missed the point of the original film.
To be fair, I'm glad they gave Rambo some sort of relief. Like, some...
Yeah, but it doesn't help that the second and third Rambo films are blatant Cold War propaganda.
Yeah, they are. But, like, after seeing...
Let's miss the point altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
For Christ's sakes, Rambo literally says in the second movie, "Do we get to win this time? Eat a dick."
Fair, but I hope you can see where I'm coming from with not wanting to see Rambo die after being pushed around by a bunch of asshole deputies.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I just disagree so much with this concept of Rambo sequels on a nutshell.
Oh, they suck.
Yeah. The only good one was Rambo was John Rambo. That was the only good one.
Yeah, that was good. Fuck Last Blood.
Yeah.
Fuck Last Blood up its ass.
Yeah.
Back to Ghost Dog, though.
Remember, hold on. Remember how the third Rambo film is credited to the brave Mujahideen? Mujahideen, sorry.
Anyway, I think Ghost Dog was very ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
In terms of cinematography and action, because much like the likes of John Wick, its action scenes are comparatively at least subdued and
there's a thought.
grounded.
There's a thought. Would you consider Die Hard a character-driven action film?
Yes,
Yeah,
because
I see that because the movie itself does a lot of focusing on John McClane's character.
Yeah, it's all about family. It's all about. I hate to make the meme joke about the Fast and the Furious movies, but Die Hard is about family at its core.
it's about him reconnecting with his wife.
Yeah, and his family in general, and the familial connections we make, even if it's not through blood. The whole bit with the. I'm forgetting his name, but the John Winslow character cop,
Yeah, the Family Matters cop.
Yeah, the Family Matters cop. And you could even argue that the thieves themselves are a found family.
Yeah, a very big screwed up family.
Big dysfunctional family.
But what makes a character action movie for me is a focus on, like Daulton said, the character's own mindset, characterization, motivations and stuff, and also their fighting styles.
Yeah.
Erin and Daulton were very much right to point at Die Hard as being an example, because John McClane is a combat survivalist, in that he tries to play things with finesse and stealth and guerrilla tactics until that's no longer an option and he has to shoot people down guns blazing like a cornered GI.
Yeah, he plays he plays things like a movie cowboy, Look at the famous the final shot of the film with the gun trick,
Yep. And in Ghost Dog's particular case,
he's a samurai.
He's a samurai with guns.
Yeah.
He quick draws like he's been practicing pistol Iaido. He always cleans and twirls his gun like he's waving a katana, which he does at one point when he trains with a
katana and a machete on the rooftop.
When you think about it, Ghost Dog is this film's Virgil.
He is. Same motions, same focus on fluidity, which I gotta really gush about, because
oh my god, wait, I made a joke for Devil May Cry, but I realized that I actually did hit another theme of the movie, because the crime family is called the Alighieri family.
Oh, right.
And when you think about it, Ghost Dog really is the Virgil to Louis Dante. He's guiding him.
He is. Look at us with all of our varying angles here. Look at you.
Yeah, and like I said, this film is all about wanting things you can't have. Even background characters. One dude wants to have sex with that hooker. He does not get to have that happen.
He loses his clothes.
Yeah, that family
They all lose their clothes.
Yeah, that family who's just trying to have a peaceful vacation. That was screwed over because Ghost Dog switched their plates, so that's probably going to cause some issues for them in the future. The man with the boat.
The guy building the boat on the roof of the building.
What's he going to do? They even say, they're like, how's he going to get the boat off the roof?
Are you going to sail through the clouds?
Yeah. It's all about wanting things, and the biggest thing is Ghost Dog wants to be the loyal dog to his master, but he's a bear. He's a black bear. He's a dying breed in the area he's in.
Alluded to both directly and indirectly by both the scene where Raymond reads Pearline and Ghost Dog a book about bears, and about a scene where Ghost Dog
runs into some hunters who have
very
killed a bear.
very racist hunters
who have killed a bear. And Ghost Dog is followed around by this dog, which, by the way, dogs are messengers of death in certain cultures as well.
Oh yeah, Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld,
or just even to
or even the grim of the dog that signifies death.
Yeah, or to tie back into black culture, the southern black idea of the black dog.
Yep.
And the black dog signals death.
Yeah.
And Ghost Dog is always uncomfortable by the dog that appears to him throughout multiple scenes in the film.
It's like the vulture from that episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, like you almost get the sense that Ghost Dog knows that the dog shouldn't be there.
But it's always there.
Yep, it's always following him. And it's an interesting thing. Everyone wants something in this movie that they can't have. Like, you even get the sense that the girl that Ghost Dog runs into multiple times just wants to have a peaceful life, but she can't because she's related to the mob. And if her dress and manner at the end of the film are any indication, she herself has taken the position of power in the mob.
And that brings us to what Louis wanted, which is power, respect, and a position.
But now he's simply yet a retainer again.
This time to the mafia princess.
Yep. It's all a film about how we have to find what we want, but we may not end up with what we want. Because even though Raymond and Pearline are left great gestures by Ghost Dog, they don't want those. They wanted their friend.
They wanted Ghost Dog. And the actor's name is eluding me at the moment, but I just have to do some gushing about
his performance
Raymond,
especially during Ghost Dog's death scene, where he like tries to get involved.
Yeah, when he's shouting, "Don't shoot! Its gun's not even loaded, you asshole!"
Yeah, it's tragic.
It is.
Actor's name is. I'm gonna botch this so badly.
Let me see.
Erin might pull it off better.
Isaac de Bekole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think. Wait, let me see. He's from the Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast and French actor.
Yeah, because he speaks French. Because some places in the Ivory Coast, they do speak French.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, because they speak French in Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really close, I think.
Speaking of French, one thing that's always blown me away is like how we can transcend language barriers even when people don't know the language. Like, for example, in Highlander, Christopher Lambert, he did not speak English
At all.
Seriously, even when he was performing Highlander, like, he knew what the script meant, but he didn't speak English.
Whoa.
So basically reading it off verbatim, but with his... Not like verbatim, but you know what I mean.
But he was just basically reading the script even...
He gave a good performance for not knowing what the fuck he was saying.
And it fits. It fits so hard because McLeod is a man out of time who doesn't belong anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How did he do that while sounding convincingly Scottish?
Well, he's not supposed to sound convincingly Scottish.
Oh.
Because remember, the one of the best lines in film history, "You sound funny, McLeod. Where are you from? Lots of places."
Fair enough. And speaking of languages, I think we should all... Dalton, you have done a good job of opening a point-by-point thematic discussion because we all have an angle to explore when it comes to this movie.
Well, much like Ghost Dog himself, I'm a voracious reader.
Yeah.
Which I think will bring me to my section of the analysis. And that would be about this movie's relationship with cultural barriers and the permeation thereof.
Yeah.
This movie spends a lot of time characterizing individuals in the cast by their relationship with other cultures and their willingness or lack thereof to learn. Pearline, as Erin alluded to, is this bookish girl that Ghost Dog befriends in the park, who is a voracious reader who covers all sorts of...
She's fascinated by culture in general.
Yeah, because when she returns Rashomon, she was just like, she's like, ancient Japan is kind of weird, but it's cool.
Yeah, and not only that, but when you look at her books, they come from various cultures. She has British books, she has African books, she has
because she had Frankenstein, she had
The Wind in the Willows.
The Wind in the Willows, The Souls of Black Folk, and then there was one that was just that pulp novel that she didn't read because she did like, Night Nurse.
Yeah, which I'm assuming was Americana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just by the Norman Rockwell style.
It had
art.
the look of a pulp cover from the 60s, which, by the way, I love a lot of the book covers in this. Like, I little mini diatribe. I hate how like sanitized book covers have come nowadays.
They've got to be a vague.
So minimalist.
Yeah, yeah.
They've got to be just a generic text overlaid with a some vague wallpaper cover.
Make horror books have like pulpy, crazy covers again. People, come on.
Bring it back to the EC Comics days. Seriously.
Bring it back to the 80s days where every like cover let you know what you were getting into. When I used to have the old the original paperback version of Pet Sematary, lost in a flood, sadly. But on the cover, you see a crazy looking evil cat. So you know, okay, there's gonna be a crazy looking evil cat in here. I know this is a horror novel. Like, it's so hard to even tell it's a horror novel nowadays unless you're looking in the freaking horror section.
So, getting back a bit to the theme of cultural lines in the sand and exchange, Pearline takes Rashomon from Ghost Dog,
who took it from the girl, who took it from the mafia princess.
And as the film heads into the home stretch and Ghost Dog knows that the end is coming, he passes on
his code. He passes his code on to Pearline.
He passes Hagakure onto Pearline, who at the very end of the movie reads us the very last quote. And this is very deliberately contrasted with other characters, such as the mobsters.
Mm-hmm.
The Henry Silva character is the only one, really, who
is interested in cultural exchange.
Louis comes close and tries to get a beat on Ghost Dog, but...
And the other guy who's like a huge fan of rap music.
Yeah.
Also, another thing to mention about cultural exchange is that the mafia in the movie does a lot of their work outside of a Chinese restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
True. That's a good point. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, because half the scenes where the mafia are, like, outside, it says, like, #1 Chinese food on the sign.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a whole lot of levels of cultural ignorance and cultural exchange going on.
And they can't even properly run a front restaurant. You see, like...
The landlord.
Yeah, because, like, they need money. That's, like, constantly alluded to throughout the movie. Is, like that's probably part of the reason they come down hard on Louis, too, is because they need more money to keep their front open. But, like, guys, you still gotta act like an actual restaurant, even if you keep weird hours and you keep your prices super low. That's the whole point of a front.
I think the most important scene, from a dialogue standpoint at least, this movie, obviously, as I've alluded to before, thrives on its subtlety and those long stretches of silence, but the best scene of dialogue for me is that meeting of the mobsters where they discuss who has been doing work for Louis and why this Ghost Dog guy's got to die. Everyone's got such awesome reactions to him, from the Flavor Flav fanboy who is like, doesn't matter how professional he is, he's got to die. And also, what the fuck kind of name is Ghost Dog? Yeah. And then the Henry Silva man.
Helicopters, by the way. That's our other sponsor.
That's our other sponsor.
Yeah.
And Henry Silva's character chimes in, comparing the significance of rappers' stage names to the names and titles of Native American tribesmen. Yeah. Like, he looks at Ghost Dog, he's like, I thought of how the natives name themselves. Running Bear. Sitting Bull.
Yeah.
And then it goes to Black Elk.
Yeah, he moves. It's weird, and I honestly wish...
It's also kind of accurate, because elks do make a weird mooing noise.
They do.
Yeah.
But I really wish we had a camera to capture your reactions to...
Richie expected me to have a much bigger pop-off, I think, and I was just kind of bemused. I was like...
Because I was used to my picks kind of baffling him. I'm like... I was preparing myself. I'm like, Daulton, fair warning, this movie takes some weird tone changes.
I would like to remind everyone, yourself included, that our debut episode was Wet Hot American Summer.
Fair point, and that was very much a case of role reversal on my end.
It's good to record this podcast, even if it's just for an hour.
We're actually at an hour and what is that?
That's why I did that.
Yeah.
That's why I did that. That's why I did that.
I do think...
Call back.
Yeah. I do think we still have more to say, though. And
oh, yeah.
This one's a meaty movie.
It is.
And getting back to the culture exchange thing, there's that great moment where Henry Silva goes on his tangents about Native Americans, and the old dude who kind of looks like a ageified Joe Pesci makes some unsavory comments.
Weirdly enough, he reminded me of Eddie Murphy in the old man makeup in Coming to America.
Oh yeah, the old Jewish guy.
Yeah, that's what he reminded me of, to be honest.
Except now he's Italian.
Yeah.
And all those creative kills, like the famous
the pipe kill, which I said, lifted straight from Brandon to Kill.
But my favorite is
probably man dies of a heart attack.
Well, that's my second favorite. Jesus, it's the fucking Birdman.
And I like how Ghost Dog had a gun pointed at both of them, and then when he saw that guy had the heart attack, he just lowered that gun, you know.
Like Ghost Dog's like,
well, I don't need to use this one now.
And of course, I gush so much about Henry Silva's performance in this because he really does capture a weird sort of dignity in spite of the fact that
he goes out like a gentleman. The only thing he wants to do is button his coat and make sure he looks nice before he dies.
And he just sits down after getting shot.
Yep.
And
leans back in his chair because he got shot.
And it ties back into the cultural exchange theme because the one mobster says on his way out, as he's dying in the car, he said, at least this guy's killing us the way we should go out, like real gangsters.
Which is another thing I'd like to bring up, are the kills in the movie. Very deliberately evocative of, again, samurais.
Yeah.
Whenever a Ghost Dog kills someone, it tends to be 4 shots.
Yep.
Which is...
a signifier of death in Japanese culture.
And also in where he shoots them, it's in the guts, near the chest, and then finally towards the head, which, for those uninitiated to the grisly process, is how the ceremony for seppuku went for samurai.
Well, at the exception of the head.
Well, no,
they would cut off the head after the disembowelment.
Yeah, but the samurai themselves couldn't cut off their own heads.
Hence the role of the executioner, which Ghost Dog himself fills in.
Mm-hmm.
And tying it back again to the theme of wanting, there's a great moment that Daulton brought up that I overlooked the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that Ghost Dog, obviously wants to go out like a samurai in the final denouement where he and Louis are standing each other down. He's emptied his gun. He's prepared to bait Louis into killing him. And
Louis only shoots him 3 times.
And he doesn't go for that final headshot. He
Nope.
just shoots him 3 times in the gut. And it's tying into both your theme and my theme. Ties into the fact that, one, Ghost Dog's desire and ultimate aspirations have eluded him. And 2, the cultural barrier couldn't be permeated.
Yep.
It's a...
Hence why he gives him Rashomon. So he would understand a little more about Japanese culture and the man who was his retainer.
And Louis, as much as he tried, didn't really get a beat on it until it was too late for Ghost Dog.
Yeah. And another little detail I'd like to point out, you do sense some hesitancy in Louis killing Ghost Dog, because notice he shot him first close to where Ghost Dog shot him.
Shot him in the shoulder. He wanted it to be non-fatal.
But he shot him in the heart.
Yeah. And, that said, I think we've gone on a lot about the cultural exchange things, but Erin, I think, had some points to make about the themes that she extracted from this.
Yes, if I can pop them back into my mind.
We got time.
We got time. So, as Daulton mentioned, the theme of wanting, because everyone wants something and they don't necessarily get it. Well, generally they don't.
They
get things, but not
necessarily
what they wanted.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how to describe it. Almost, not so much a be careful what you wish for kind of thing, but kind of like, you may get what you want, but it's not what you expected. That kind of thing. Another thing I was going to mention, another theme, I guess, is the amount of, not really a theme, but moreover, the amount of foreshadowing that they use throughout the film. Because throughout either, sorry, I'm blanking, at the beginning where he talks about the seppuku, and how it's like, this is how it's done, this is how samurais are supposed to die. Kind of like a death before dishonor. And he wanted to die that way, but he wasn't going to. What part of those you don't exactly get what you want, but sorry, I was about to quote the Rolling Stones. Sorry, my mind is blanking today. I apologize, dear listeners. But yeah, with the amount of foreshadowing that they use, also with the cartoons, because you see everything in there from, like, Betty Boop to, like, I almost said Fritz the cat, Felix the cat, Woody Woodpecker, and then Itchy and Scratchy towards the end. The scenes that they show in there are scenes that will be almost basically mimicked, not mirrored, but mimicked. There is a difference between those two words. Later in the film. And as Daulton mentioned, I'm just repeating stuff everyone said. I'm sorry.
We've all repeated stuff. You're fine.
We've all repeated stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is for you.
This is my section that I'm botching.
You're fine.
You're good.
I'm a voice actor. I'm used to botching my own stuff.
But yeah, Richie, please cut out these long, awkward pauses.
No problemo.
Thank you.
Like that one?
Like that one. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! I'm
We
thinking of
gotta
stuff
keep
to
that
say.
one. We gotta keep that one.
Shut up! I'm trying to think of stuff to say about the movie outside of the film score, cinematography. I love the transitional shots.
Yes.
There we go.
We never elaborated on those.
We did not elaborate on those. So the transitional scenes that they use in the film are done incredibly well. Especially, there's a scene where he's driving through a tunnel and there's 4 overlapping transitions, which at first I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. And I'm like, okay, that was actually really cool how they did the overlapping transitions between, like, his face while he's driving, the tunnels, the outside of the car, and then also the text that overlays. And I love the text overlay scenes and how it kind of like fades to black. Because you can see how a lot of times in movies when something fades to black, you're like, oh, they're gonna do that. It's like, this is a commercial break for when they air it on television, which I'm just like, I don't see this movie airing on TV anytime soon unless it's on a premium channel. Remember cable? Everyone just is streaming now, but remember cable? Remember having to set your TiVo? Anyway.
At what point did we get old?
At what point around 3 years ago. Around 3 years ago.
Fair.
We're all in our late 20s now.
Yeah.
But the transitional shots are great. The score, both the incidental music, which is just, it's here and there. Like, you're not going to see it in every single scene because there are long stretches of silence in the film. But the incidental music of, like, the music plays when they're getting out of cars or things like, just not the stuff that plays in the stereo, but just a little bit of music here and there. That was fantastic. And another thing I was going to mention that I appreciate about this movie is that in all the scenes where they're cocking guns, they're not cocking the same gun multiple times. That's me nitpicking action films, because you see I can't do the little mimic thing because I'm holding a mic right now. But it's like, you hear the click, click, click every time they move, which is like, that's not how guns work.
At all.
That's not how guns work. You cock it once, you're done.
We're gonna end up on a watch list. We're discussing it.
Well, here's the thing. I grew up in the middle of bumfuck nowhere where everyone had a gun. And everyone went deer hunting on the first day of deer hunting season, which is also usually a school day.
This gives me such vibes of when we covered Near Dark, and you immediately caught on to how in the middle of bumfuck nowhere it was by the fact that nobody had a working car that came out in that decade.
Yeah, because in Near Dark, all of those cars were like 10, 20 years old, and if you drive anywhere in the Appalachians, you will see about 1 million Chevy Cavaliers which have not been made in 25 years.
Speaking of the score that you brought up earlier, shout out to that one awesome scene of Ghost Dog eating ice cream in the park while freestylers are rapping over the beat of Rick Wan's Ice Cream.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was really nice. Because like, you heard the ice cream truck and, not really music playing, but just, Raymond just doing the whole ice cream spiel. And the camera just pans over, like, it cuts over to a group of, like, these guys who have a boombox and they're just freestyling.
Mm-hmm.
And
on a park bench.
And
good diegetic music.
Oh yes, very good diegetic music, and the RZA is a master of that in both his work for this and even not so great films like The Man in the Iron Mask.
The 90s one?
No, not The Man in the Iron Mask. The Man with the Iron Fist. I'm stupid.
Oh.
I was like, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Wrong
I was
one.
like, he did the score for that?
Whoop. Man with the Iron Fist. It's that weird Tarantino pastiche that he directed.
Yeah.
It's that martial arts movie that is
Mm-hmm.
kind of too much of a mess for its own good.
That's a shame.
But, I mean, soundtrack was good. But I believe this is a good point to bring it out of spoilers and
close it up.
And more or less close it up by saying, this movie is like a deliciously prepared stew. There's a lot going on for it, and there are times where it does taste a little busy, but you ultimately appreciate all the ingredients that went in.
Or a ramen, if you will.
I was gonna say Cajun food.
Like a jambalaya?
Like a jambalaya, or like a jambalaya or a gumbo, because there's a ton of ingredients, but they all work together.
Or a goulash.
Jim
That's Hungarian.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, goulash is Hungarian.
I'm just throwing soups out there. Now I'm hungry.
I've been hungry for 2 hours.
All right, well, let's wrap this up then. And this will be the only April episode. We apologize. Stuff happens, life happens, schedules happen. But we will be back for our next theme month next month.
Which I would like to say, remember when I said earlier between musical month and the next month that I thought this was a pretty good transitional piece?
Mm-hmm.
Because it had Eastern culture and music.
Oh, it does.
That, I believe, is a perfect time for...
Drumroll, please.
To hand off the mic and to Erin, who will introduce us for our next month.
That theme month being...
Anime. Yes, it's Anna M-A-Y.
We will not apologize.
We run on puns.
I will not apologize for stealing that from Crunchyroll. Let's go.
He's waiting for a high five, Daulton.
Hey.
So our first stop in anime will be, we are returning to the world of Makoto Shinkai.
Our old buddy.
Our old buddy, who you may remember from The Garden of Words, which was a short film he did. But we're returning to his work, and we're stepping a little bit back in time in his work. It's not a period piece. Well, unless you count, 2004 as period.
Mm.
No.
Turning Red does.
Stop making me feel old.
You see, a period piece has to be 30 years, though.
30 years or older.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So we're not quite there yet. Give it a couple of years.
Please don't make me feel older than I already am.
Movie.
Anyway, so the film that we're doing is an early Makoto Shinkai film called 5 centimeters per second. And if you're wondering what that's in reference to, you'll find out, but it has to do with cherry blossoms.
All right. We'll see you next time.